believe that sewing should be fun. And what could be more fun than Ruffles?
The first step is to lay down 2 rows of basting stitches parallel to the edge of the fabric that you wish to ruffle or gather. Use a straight stitch and set it to your longest stitch length. Pull your threads out nice and long to start. Find the right side of your fabric, and you're going to want to stitch with the right side facing up. Stitch all along the side you want to ruffle or gather. Do not backstitch. Stitch with a 5/8 inch seam allowance. Sew right to the end, no backstitching. Pull some extra thread out after you stop stitching to leave very long thread tails at the end. Next, stitch again, this time halfway between the first row and the edge of your fabric. Again, pull your threads out nice and long to start. Be careful not to stitch over your other long thread tails. Stitch right down the center as shown. As you approach the end, stop to tuck your thread tails aside so that you don't sew over them. Remove the same way as before, leaving long thread tails. You now have train tracks with long thread tails at each end. At one end, locate the 2 long threads emerging from the wrong side of the fabric. In other words, the bobbin threads. Do not pull the threads on the right side of the fabric. Now you can pull the bobbin threads with your right hand. With your left hand, pinch and slide the fabric along the train tracks to the left. Keep pulling, pinching, and sliding to the left. Readjust your grip on the threads that you're pulling as needed. Be very careful as you work to pull only the bobbin threads. When you've made good progress on the side you're working on, you can switch to the opposite end. Continue gathering from that end, pulling only the bobbin threads. When the entire edge is all roughly gathered, take a moment to distribute your gathers more evenly. The next thing to do is to pin our gathered fabric to a flat piece of fabric. When you cut fabric for a project involving a gathered or ruffle element, notice how the edge that will be ruffled is significantly longer than the edge that is meant to be attached to it in the form of a flat piece of fabric. Our job is to gather up the longer edge until it matches the length of the shorter edge. Make sure you've clearly marked any and all notches from your pattern. Pin with right sides together. There's the matching notch for my ruffled fabric. Match and pin notches. I find it's better to work with the smooth fabric layer on top. Next, match and pin the ends, and/or seams if you have any. If necessary, you can always pull your bobbin threads to match the lengths of your straight and ruffled fabric edges. You can see in my example here that the ruffled fabric edge was a little longer than the straight edge, so I went ahead and tugged a little on that bobbin thread. Once the edges match, we can pin. But first, take another moment to evenly distribute the gathers. Now I'm going to go ahead and work on the other half. Work in logical sections as you go about pinning the entire ruffled edge to the entire straight edge. The number and location of your sections will be project driven. In my project, it just made sense to work in 2 sections, from central notch to one end, and then from that same notch to the other end. Other section configurations you may encounter are seam to seam, notch to notch, etc. stitch with a 5/8 inch seam allowance. Do a little backstitch to start and stitch with a smooth layer facing up. Periodically, you can check underneath to ensure that the layers are not doubling up. Do a little backstitch at the end. Open out your layers, and that's how it looks. We're in the final stretch. Now all that's left to do is to remove the long basting stitches.
If you look closely, you can probably even see some peeking out on the right side of your fabric.
You'll need a seam ripper for this step. I like to work and pull the threads from the wrong side of the fabric first. The top thread on the wrong side usually comes out really easily. Now for the bottom row. You can start by picking at the long stitches at one end. The bottom row can be trickier, but sometimes it comes right out. Mine came out with no resistance. If you're less lucky, that's okay. Just keep picking and picking at that row with your seam ripper till the stitches are all gone. Now for the final step, flip your project back over to the right side and remove the remaining basting threads. By taking the time to remove all of the bobbin threads from the wrong side of the fabric first, you've made this part really easy for yourself, and you probably won't even need a seam ripper. And that's it, all done. That's all there is to it. Thanks for watching. See you next time.